This podcast contains content that may be triggering, so please practice self-care, knowing that you can stop, pause, and regulate at any point. In our description, you'll find a free resource to help you do just that, to ground throughout your listening experience. I am so glad to welcome Dr. Davis and Gigi Barrios from Medical Safe Haven to Be the Bloom. I'm going to start off, as always, by sharing a little bit about them and reading their bios. Okay. So Dr. Davis earned her medical degree from the UCLA School of Medicine in 1982 and went on to complete her residency at the Northridge Family Medicine Residency program, where she was honored with the Outstanding Resident Award upon graduation. She subsequently joined the residency program as a faculty member and, in 2001, was appointed program director. Throughout her career, Dr. Davis has dedicated herself to the education and mentorship of family medicine residents. A passionate advocate for family medicine education, equitable healthcare access, and the expanded role of family physicians in community health, Dr. Davis has made significant contributions to advancing trauma-informed care. 6 years ago, she established a branch of the Medical Safe Haven at the Northridge Residency program, where she leads a weekly clinic focused on providing compassionate, comprehensive care to survivors of human trafficking. In addition to training residents in trauma-informed approaches, Dr. Davis has lectured extensively on survivor-centered care and has supported the Common Spirit Health Team in launching similar programs across the network. Her work is driven by a deep commitment to ensuring safe, trauma-informed, and high-quality care for vulnerable populations. Such a wealth of expertise, of passion. I entirely understand being the, physician champion. I'm so glad you're here. And then Gigi Barrios serves as the Senior Medical Safe Haven Program Coordinator at Dignity Health, where she provides essential trauma-informed training and support to physicians and medical staff across California. Through her extensive certification and field experience, Gigi equips healthcare teams with the tools necessary to compassionately and effectively care for individuals with complex trauma and mental health needs. With over a decade of experience, Gigi has devoted her career to supporting victims and survivors of human trafficking. And prior to her role at Dignity Health, she led initiatives focused on direct service delivery, emergency and transitional housing management, and the development of innovative programs designed to empower and restore survivors, particularly women and their children affected by sexual exploitation. Gigi's expertise, dedication, and empathic leadership continue to be a driving force in advancing care and healing for vulnerable communities throughout the state. I know highly how important it is to have training, to have education be a continuous practice, learning how to continue to do this work. And so thank you, Gigi, for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with us and being on Be the Bloom. So welcome to Dr. Davis and Gigi. Just reading your bios, obviously you all have a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of passion for care. And I'm always interested in learning what your story is to bring you to the work that you do. And so, Dr. Davis, if you don't mind starting us off, what's your story?
Well, my story is I've always been a family physician and educator, but I've really been most proud of our work with underserved populations and always struggling to find new groups. When I heard about this program, I did not start this program. Dr. Ron Chambers and Jennifer Cox up in Sacramento, along with Gigi and Laura, our other program manager, are the leaders of we're a site in Southern California. When I was trained and exposed to what they were doing, it was one of the most innovative programs I had heard of in a long time. I feel like I've done a lot in my career. I've been doing this, as you mentioned, a long time. This was something new and really has changed the last several years of my practice, has really allowed me to grow in ways that I didn't know I could. And it's given me an opportunity to just love coming to work again. So that's how I got here. We decided to establish this medical safe haven here in Southern California at Northridge at our program. It has been just an amazing opportunity for me, for our staff. All of our staff are involved in this, and of course, our young physicians, and allowing them to see the things that we can do with this opportunity through Gigi's leadership and teaching and the team that's based in Sacramento. We couldn't have done it without them, but we really have been honored to be involved in the process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. And Gigi, what about you? Can you share a little bit about your story that brought you to this work?
Um, so I went to college originally to become a therapist. That's what I always wanted to do. And during that time, I was required to be a part of an internship program and connect with an agency and do some volunteer hours there. And so I was connected to an organization located in Sacramento, California, where they provided housing, emergency shelter for victims and survivors of human trafficking and their children. And at that time, I didn't really think that was like an area I wanted to like go into, but I'm like, hey, this is a great organization. I am passionate about serving people and helping people, and I think it'd be really great to get that experience in. And during my time there, I quickly realized I was way more passionate about this cause than I ever thought or realized. And just working with the people, I mean, incredible human beings, and just I felt a sense of hope in that. Sometimes it could feel very chaotic and it could feel very hopeless as well to step into what feels like chaos at times of people coming fresh off the streets and coming into a home, not having any type of stability and hearing these heartbreaking stories. But for whatever reason, I felt glimmers of hope in those moments where I felt, hey, I think this is going to be a lane that I really want to pursue. And so I quickly ended up getting hired on while I was still finishing school, and I was helping them develop their housing program. They had been around for a couple of years, but never really had, the structure implemented into that. So I really worked hard with connecting with therapists, one in particular who was a boxer as well. So being able to provide these really cool, like boxed it out anger management classes and really seeing the outcome of that, seeing like individuals come into housing, say, I'm excited, I need to get some anger out, let me go punch these bags, and figuring out what worked, what didn't work, to really create that space of healing, but also be able to help someone just accomplish things and know that they were worthy of good things. They are worthy of going to college and finishing high school if they didn't have that, and being incredible mothers. And yeah, I was connected to Dignity Health during my time there as well when the Medical Safe Haven program launched in Sacramento, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in this podcast. But I got hired onto the Dignity Health team a few years after that, and I've been here for 5 years now, and I'm incredibly honored to be a part of this team. And Dr. Davis, getting to work alongside of her, she's an incredible physician. It's just been, I mean, life-giving to me, and not all days are easy, but it's so rewarding to be a part of this work.
Mm. I hear you when you talk about, well, everything, but hope, right? And I remember when I first heard about Medical Safe Haven, and I was blown away. I was like, what, that's like a thing? And when I heard about the structure, the care that's offered, and even when I talk to other people about it in doing this work with Cactus in Bloom, they're also blown away, and they're like, so how does that work? How does that happen? And so could you tell us a little more? And Gigi, let's start with you. If you could tell us a little more about like what is Medical Safe Haven? And you mentioned a bit about the population that you support and that you offer care to, But can you tell us a little more about what that looks like?
So the medical safe haven really is a healthcare space, primary care, where we provide for victims and survivors to be able to access healthcare with little to no barriers. It's also led by trauma-informed physicians who are highly and extensively trained in this field, in this work, how to care for this patient population. And so we have an incredible team, Jennifer Cox, who's our program director, and Dr. Ron Chambers, who's our medical director as well. He really just started with sitting through a human trafficking training and realizing, wow, I never learned this in med school. And he was leading a residency at the time. So, you get fresh physicians out of med school that are, starting a little bit more of their training to be able to go on and do their own thing across the country. And so he said, we need to do something about this. Realizing as well at the same time that he was working with victims and survivors across the street at the hospital, labor delivery, urgent care, emergency department, and not identifying them at the time. And so when he started becoming more knowledgeable about the situation, he said, we need to do something about it. So he partnered with Jennifer Cox, who really pioneered and made the connection. He said, hey, I'm passionate about connecting with community partners. I'm fully aware of some agencies that are already boots on the ground doing this work. So what I love about this team is that we didn't just come in and say, hey, we're the doctors, we know what we're doing, bring in your clients. They sat at the table, they invited those community agencies, they invited law enforcement who are already boots on the ground doing this work, saying, we don't know how we're going to do this, we don't know if this is going to work, but this is something we're passionate about and we feel like there is a need. Do you feel the same way? What do you think? What are your thoughts? And I remember being one of those people at the table at that point and saying, wow, actually, now that I think about it, all the clients that I was serving when I was a part of this community agency at the time, I would personally be the one dropping them off in emergency departments or urgent cares because nobody had established healthcare. Get referrals in all the time. And it was almost like we'll cross that bridge when we get there, if we get there, we need to get there. But it was never anything that I felt like, it was never a part of my intake process of, hey, who's your primary care physician? A lot of the folks that I served as well didn't have benefit, didn't have health insurance. They also, some of them didn't have their IDs or social security cards because they had been taken by their trafficker. And so all of that just felt so overwhelming to even start. It's like, let's start with the basic needs. Let's make sure they get housing. But healthcare was like almost last resort if we needed it. And so when Dignity Health came and said, is it something that you feel would be helpful? We said, absolutely. So everybody was on board. And what we quickly realized is that all the survivors we were serving were actually a little bit more hesitant of saying, okay, I want to go to the doctor. Why? Because all of their healthcare experiences had always been negative. They would go to the emergency department because they would get beat by their trafficker, or they would have STIs or anything along those lines that they needed to get taken care of, but they'd always get judged. There was stigma involved. Like there was always something that made them feel like they were unworthy, like they were treated and seen as prostitutes or drug addicts. And so we really had to figure out, how are we going to build this trust? How are we going to build that bridge between healthcare and the survivor who's experienced so much trauma in their life, but also trauma within the healthcare system. And I, as a case manager, I had the opportunity to offer my support and say, I'm willing to sit with you during that doctor's visit. And with the patient's permission, I was sitting in through so many appointments. I would bring in 5 different clients a day. We were just joking about this the other day with our program manager, Laura. She said, I remember when you would come in 5 times a day, bringing in different individuals. You were here from like 9 a.m. You wouldn't leave till like 5:30. And that was just my reality because I was so passionate about this. I cared about them getting taken care of. And I also didn't want them to feel alone and feel like they had to just sit in a doctor's office getting asked all these questions and not feel heard or seen or understood. So I got to step in as an advocate and be able to speak up if I needed to, if I saw something was a little off. But what was great is I felt like I never really had to do that because these doctors were going in, understanding what human trafficking was, what it is, also the trauma part of why a person wouldn't necessarily just get up and leave, why it's not that easy, and just the effects of trauma and how it impacts an individual. And so those first couple of visits, being able to sit in with patients, them being a little hesitant, being a little reserved and closed off, but providing that space where they were able to leave and you would see the smile on their faces, like their faces lit up. Wow, like I have never felt seen, understood, or validated. And because these physicians were creating this space where people are feeling dignified, they're feeling valued. I completely, like, I would want to step out of that room in tears because of the experience I had. It wasn't my experience, but I felt like, wow, like that's someone that truly deeply cares about this work and just wants to see people get better. And with no strings attached. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing ever. But also the medical safe haven provides time. You and I can go to the doctor, probably be seen for 15 minutes and then be done with a physician, but we realize it's not going to work that way with this patient population. We're going to need a little more time. So the first appointment is typically 15 minutes long. Sorry, not 15 minutes long. It's
90 minutes.
Yeah, 60 to 90 minutes long is the first initial appointment.
Wow.
And after that, any follow-up is 30 to 45 minutes, depending on our location. The way that our program has also been built is we have an embedded advocate at each location. And so we highly encourage case managers who already have established that relationship, built that rapport with their clients, to sit in those visits if they can with the patient's permission. But if they can't, support in that way, then we have an advocate on site who's able to do that. That advocate also communicates with the physician, so the physicians know exactly what they're stepping into before they meet with the patient. Their physician is aware of all those triggers, so the advocate will ask either case manager or even the patient while they're doing the intake forms, is there anything you need to be aware of? Do you prefer a male or a female provider? Do you, are sudden movement or loud noise is a trigger for you? And so the physician already knows going into it, okay, I know what I'm getting into, but also maybe I'll, steer away from these questions because it's a trigger also for them. And so it's just a beautiful space where patients just feel like it's a medical home. Regardless of where one is on their journey, we open our doors, we don't judge. In this work, there is a lot of, relapse and people go back into the lives. But it's beautiful just to see them still show up for their doctor's appointments. No matter where they're at on their journey, they know where they can get their health care. And I've personally seen that firsthand. I brought in some of the very first patients back in 2016 to the Medical Safe Haven program. And when I was doing housing, and some of them would just leave, get up and leave. And I'd always wonder, are they still alive? What's ever happening? What happened to them? And being a part of the Dignity Health team, years down the road, seeing their names pop up on appointment lists, I was completely taken aback and like, wow, they're still showing up to their visits, which was super exciting because you could truly see just the impact of this work, not just for the physicians, but also for the survivors. And we have incredible partnerships. That's really how we run our program is through law enforcement, community-based organizations who bring in those referrals. We do get some self-referrals that come in, through word of mouth, or sometimes a physician will identify someone in the emergency department, so we'll get referrals that way. But really we get most of our referrals from community partners who are providing the case management. And then we step in also to help, support that wraparound support for individuals. Not sure if I left anything out, Dr. Davis.
Gigi, that was amazing. I think you're totally on point. I wanted to say, we don't have anything negative to say about our other healthcare providers like emergency room physicians, staff, but on a Friday night at 11 o'clock, when a lot of these patients are literally dragged into the emergency room, that's the busiest time. There's 3 traffic accidents. So the docs and the nurses there aren't attuned to these patients, their needs. They're not looking for, why is this guy standing over this person and why is this happening? So the patients do have really negative experiences and feel jostled around. And so that's what we try to explain to them, why that even happens. But for primary care needs, they're best to come to see someone like us. We want to introduce them to the concept of a regular family doctor or your primary care doctor, and that's the person who can really help problem solve through most of your healthcare needs. So it's a learning thing. We use this as kind of like a medical learning thing because most of our patients have not had relationships with doctors. They don't even know what a doctor visit sometimes people come in and they just say, I want to see what this is all about. And they will say, what are your healthcare needs right now? I don't know. I'll see later. They just want to meet us and get the vibe and find out, are we going to be judging them or how we're going to treat them? And then they open up. And that's fine. We've had some visits where we just talked about us or what we do, and they get to sit and kind of see what's going on. And then if they feel safe, then they're going to allow us to be their physician. And it's all about creating that medical safe haven.
Yes, yes. Oh, so I'm hearing so many things that I just want to highlight. There's a theme happening with a lot of these interviews is language is so key. And so what I'm hearing is that what's part of the secret sauce of medical safe haven are a couple of things. One is time and what the gift of time allows for someone just even thinking foundationally about nervous system regulation and someone who's already coming in having had lots of power over them and a lot of harm for whatever reason in many different ways, and how the nervous system just walking into the door can create a reason to leave. And so, what it means to give time for folks to settle, to be present, to explore, to figure out, is this a place that I can be? I think that's such an important tool. But I'm also hearing communication, the training and education that folks get who are the providers, and how that just informs the way in which, they can show up and adjust, right? Because it's not necessarily, folks will often ask, well, tell me what to do. And I often am telling folks, well, this is not that type of knowledge sharing space, right? This is about how do you build the tools that you need, the approaches, so that depending on the situation, you can adjust. You can use your wisdom, your knowledge based off of these foundations. So I'm hearing that is very much present and provided, but I'm also hearing attunement and safety, because when you are in a certain um, capacity, it is hard to attune. It is hard to notice what's going on because you're overstimulated. There's a lot going on, a lot to attend to versus attune to. So thank you all for sharing all of that, because that feels so vital to being able to support folks. I'll also make a connection that some folks who may be listening may wonder, okay, well, what does this have to do with survivors of childhood sexual abuse? And what I will say is that I don't know how often folks are talking about it. I don't hear it enough, but there's lots of research that talks about the correlation between folks who are sex trafficked and those who have experienced CSA. And one of the most common threads amongst survivors of sex trafficking is childhood sexual abuse. And so when we're thinking about the multi-layers that folks are bringing into medical safe haven or to any doctor's office, I think about, even the dental office and the ways that what is happening for them is showing up. It is with all of these layers connected. So I wanted to just speak to that. I'm also wanting to ask you all about, you know, um, it feels like such a unique space and experience, medical safe haven. And you have the original location, and then you also have the space in Northridge. Did I get that right? So there's something that said to you, okay, we need this additional location.
We have other locations as well. Gigi can
Okay,
address that.
yeah, can you share what that expansion looked like and why?
So, I mean, our goal in life in general is to be able to expand our program through all family residencies across the country.
Mm.
And we have noticed that so many healthcare organizations who hear about our programs, hear about our work, they say, hey, how can we do this as well? How can we, get the ball rolling to get our staff trained and be able to provide the same level of care to victims and survivors? And Dr. Davis could probably speak to this a little bit more too, but it goes so much further than just serving victims and survivors of food trafficking. the type of care that these doctors are learning and they're being able to, uh, be a part of, it goes far beyond that, where they completely change the way they practice for all their patients. It's not just human trafficking victims that they're seeing under the medical safe haven program. They become better physicians. They're able to be more mindful of everyone, and hold space for all of their patients as well, because you never know what shoes someone has walked through. And Ebony, I appreciate you highlighting the intersection between trafficking and childhood sexual, abuse, because there is a huge intersection there, and we see it daily with our patients. I think one of the misconceptions that I really want to highlight is people assume that trafficking happens overseas, or, it's usually someone that's kidnapped and, X, Y, and Z. But the reality is, and yes, a lot of that is true, but the majority of the patients that we serve, and we have established, I mean, oh gosh, over like 800 patients just alone here in our Sacramento location. The majority of patients that we serve are being familial trafficked. And so mom and dad sold them for drug money, or, and so the abuse happened, and you tell them, when did the exploitation happen? They say as little as 5 years old, 3 years old. And so there is a huge intersection there where that is happening, and it's happening in their own homes. It's happening in our backyards, right? Mm-hmm. And thank you for highlighting that. But going back to the medical safe haven program in our locations, we first launched in Sacramento in 2016, and then quickly realized, okay, we want to replicate to a new location, which was Redding, California. So Shasta County, a little more rural area. But we realized there was also a need there. Then we replicated our third location, which was Northridge, so Los Angeles County, which that one was a little bit more of a challenge. We replicated there in the middle of COVID, where we still weren't sure of what was happening, how things were going. We're still a little bit on lockdown and doing telehealth visits. But with Dr. Davis's help and her support, we were able to launch there. And it's been great to have our program in Southern California as well. Then in 2022, we launched in Santa Maria, California, so Central Coast area by Santa Barbara. And we also replicated in 2023, in San Francisco, California. Wow. And so we also have a smaller location under one of our community partners called Community Against Sexual Harm here in Sacramento, where our doctors volunteer a few days a week. It's a part of their drop-in center. And so it's just a quick, easy access when our doctors are on site. They have a clinic space there as well, where women get to just drop into the center and get their healthcare needs met if they're not fully ready to establish care somewhere. Or sometimes a lot of folks are homeless, and so they don't have access to cell phones, or they don't have that ability to be able to be reminded, hey, you have a doctor's appointment this day, this time. So it's just a space to quickly access care, and get their basic needs met there. So we have a total of 6 locations in the state of California. We are currently working on replicating our 7th site in Arizona. So we're super excited, out of state, but we just got back from a trip actually yesterday. So we're super excited to get that going.
Wow. I'm excited for you all, and for the folks who will get to receive care, who in all of those locations, but also in another place. Thank you for sharing all of that. So one of the reasons for doing this podcast is because I realized, as a therapist in the field who's been doing therapy with survivors of sexual violence for a while, I know to some degree who folks are. And I've been learning that even more through Cactus in Bloom. But I realize I'm like on the phone having these lovely conversations and realizing this person doesn't know this person. And I ask survivors, who seek referrals, and they're like, well, where can I go? And they don't know, but also there's not always a clear answer, right? Because what's available to them, what's in their area, all of those, so really this need to connect folks, to let folks know, hey, we're here and here's what we offer. But also the other piece about skill building, because there are a lot of, folks who are in the role of care provider, who may not have access to a training, right? The type of training that you all offer, or to trainings that really dig deep into how do I offer this particular kind of care? Because their time might be incredibly limited. Where they work, it might be this is the trainings we have to do. We don't have space for anything else at this moment. Understandably, that happens. But really thinking about how folks like, Dr. Davis and Gigi, how you're able to share this expertise and this wisdom and in nuggets that someone can learn about on this in this space and then try to apply something, right, into their toolbox, learn more about it, practice it. So, Dr. Davis, I'm wondering if there's a tool, a skill, a practice that is in your toolbox that has been helpful for you and that you think would be really important for other physicians to know about.
I thought about that because you mentioned that. And I think the one that I think is really teaching more and more, especially with these patients, but it applies to all patients, about the patient's own autonomy.
Mm.
Um, and I use some things I've learned from the medical safe haven now with some of my older patients, all my patients. For example, when women have what we call sensitive exams, which are sensitive body parts, I stop and I say, by the way, I'm going to be examining XYZ, your sensitive area. You have a right to stop me at any time. And people look at me and they go, I have a right to tell a doctor something? And I go, absolutely. And these are things we use all the time in the medical safe haven. And it's very important because our patients, even though people don't realize, touching them is a huge trigger for most of the patients. And our advocates will calmly tell us, they don't want to be touched, or they want to be touched in a certain way, or they want permission and talk about it. And so it's, what I try to say is, we're not doing things to you, we're doing things with you.
Mm.
And if this body part needs to be examined, whether it's your elbow, and it might be your elbow, but we treat every elbow the same, with respect and permission, and you can stop me at any time. So now when I use that even with my, whatever you call regular patients, they're like, what? I can talk to a doctor? I can tell them to stop? And I said, absolutely, anytime. It is your body. It is your right to say stop. And the doctor, if they have a reason to keep going, they're going to explain that to you for your health or your safety. So that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of physicians can learn from this. There's things that are just coming out now about self-testing for STIs. You don't have to have a physician do an invasive test. We use those concepts in the medical safe haven, where people can be in charge of their own body. I think those are really important things in general practice, but also what comes from trauma-informed care and work in the medical safe haven.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to just highlight for folks that you just provided language for folks to use, right? So often, in work I've done with residents, they're not sure what to say or how to say it or what's going to be on the other end of the response. And so really seeking language. And so I appreciate that you just laid out for folks, here are the different ways that you can approach this and share this with your patients. And I really think the elbow piece is great. It's funny, but it's applicable,
It
right?
is.
Every elbow, you treat every elbow with respect. Thank you. Gigi, what about you? What tool, what practice, what skill do you think would be really, really important for folks to add to their toolbox?
I feel the same way, basically just reiterating what Dr. Davis said, but I truly value when I'm respected and when I'm treated with dignity. And I feel the same way with our program. Something that I have seen is when our physician steps into that room and does not bring in that judgment, does not bring in that personal, bias, but is able to create space. And I feel like creating space for folks is so important. Just sitting there. Sometimes you don't always have to have something to say back. I feel like sometimes we feel that obligation and we try to fill in the gaps, and then we just make more of an uncomfortable situation for that other person. So sometimes just holding space for someone is so valuable, but also saying, I see you, I believe you, and I'm here with you. And just providing that hand, just saying, you're not in this alone. Especially in the healthcare space, I've heard so many individuals who have stepped through our program say, no one's truth on my ever take this program. And to know that someone that they see in a position of power, someone that's such as a nurse or a physician, to be able to give them that opportunity to opt in, to opt out, to use their voice. A lot of our patients, they've been silent. They've been, they've been trained to not make eye contact, to not speak up, to not say anything. And so it could be very intimidating and scary when someone even gives you that opportunity to use your voice, to say something. But when you hold space for someone and you create that safe space where you can just say, actually, I feel really comfortable with you and I don't know why, I think that's just so special and so valuable. And I think that's where the true change begins. It's not someone coming in saying, I know better and I know what to do, and so you have to listen to me. It's just saying, hey, how do you feel today? And sometimes even just saying, thank you for showing up today. Because showing up was probably the hardest thing that person had to do for that day. And so just acknowledging a person, saying thank you for showing up, and saying, hey, you have the ability to use your voice today, and I'm here to listen, and I'm here to just support you in any way that I can.
I'd love to echo what Gigi said, because I've learned this from Gigi and her team, is to express gratitude to the patients. And that's something that's a little different, that we say, thank you for coming today. Thank you for speaking to us. And the patients look at you, they kind of have this like shocked look on their face, but they get accustomed to that we're here for you and we want to hear you. And I want to bring up an elephant in the room in medicine is the computer. One of the things we do in the medical safe haven is we try to push that computer aside and we talk about just leaving that aside. It's intimidating to people. They feel like they're being recorded or things are being written down. And we say, we're just here to take care of you, and whatever needs to be put down, we'll put that down. But gratitude, thank you for coming. Thank you for trusting us is something we say a lot. And I think that's something that Gigi's team has really emphasized, and I've learned and grown a lot from.
So good. And I can't help but go back to this idea of like the time and how time may allow you to do that. Do you find that you're able to slow down and have those moments because you have embedded the time in to do so?
Yes, we do. I mean, we definitely aren't on the same pace in these sessions. But occasionally things happen. One day we had patients brought in family members. We deal a lot with secondary survivors at our site. I'm sure at Gigi's sites, other sites we do as well. And you're never going to say, no, I can't see your child, or, so sometimes you have to compress things a little bit. So the time, we do the best with the time we can, but they know it's not just, hey, you have 10 minutes and you're being rushed out. They know we're here to listen. We close that computer, what else? And the other question is always, what else? Because I've always taught physicians that it's usually that third thing that is the most meaningful to most patients. You say, what are you here for? And they might say X or Y, but I always say, and what else? And what else? And it's usually the third thing is the one that they're holding on to, that they're afraid of telling you about. So that's an important reason for that time, because we need that time to say, and what else?
Yeah. Yes. That's so huge. Thank you for sharing those tools, those skills. I also think about, hey, someone might be listening and they might have the opportunity or really be hungry to dig in deeper for themselves. So is there a resource, a training, a book, article, whatever it is that you feel would be helpful?
Absolutely. Our medical safe haven team has developed and published a few research articles, but one in particular that really stands out that we really like to highlight is our TikTok study that we did a few years ago. It stands for trauma-informed care trafficking outcomes. And the basis of this research was to highlight the importance of the trauma-informed healthcare partnered with someone receiving the case management side, someone receiving that housing support, and what it truly leads to. And so we partnered with our community partner here in Sacramento, the agency Community Against Sexual Harm. We probably told about 38 participants that we knew, hey, we know that these are a part of your program, but we know that they're also enrolled in our medical safe haven program. So let's go ahead and take a deeper look, a deeper dive into the outcomes of, is there improvement? Is there progress? Can we find anything that says, yeah, we need the two in partnership together to be able to provide much better and broader like wraparound support for someone. And I mean, when you look at the numbers, it's absolutely insane. So we found that 400% are likely to complete their program, to, go on, graduate, and maybe even go off to school or hold jobs for a longer period of time if they have that health piece also a part of their treatment plan. We also help address things like mental health at our medical safe haven, which is one of the great things. I mean, you have someone coming off the streets that has suffered so much trauma. And so what do you do when someone's so anxious? What do you do when someone's paranoid? What do you do when there's, that just those triggers in the middle of the night where they have night terrors? And sometimes when you remove someone from all of the noise and all of that chaos and you put them into a quiet, safe space, they don't know what to do with that because they've never been in that space of safety. And so it's more uncomfortable for them and it's unfamiliar. And so that's why a lot of the folks get up and go. And so we're able to step into the picture and say, hey, let's help balance that out a little bit. Let's help treat that. So you feel more stable, you feel more secure, and you're able to get a good night's rest, but also, wake up the next day and complete your program.
Yeah.
I also want to highlight one more thing is one of our interviews that we did with ABC 10 here in Sacramento. It's a story that highlights one of our patients, and I got to be a part of this patient's journey from day one when I was a part of the housing program, and I brought her into her very first doctor's appointment, and now 10 years down the road, just to hear her success story is just, it's so encouraging. And I highly encourage it because she talks about her trafficking experience, how she got into it, how she got out, but also what healthcare meant for her and how it also supported her on her journey and the impact that it had to have someone that sat down, that cared. Dr. Ron Chambers is an incredible physician. And so to be able to say, ain't no man ever cared about my health, but Dr. Chambers did, that's powerful. And so really, really encourage that as well.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Dr. Davis, any additions to that, or does that feel pretty complete?
That's good. I don't have any resources. All of our resources that we use here are kind of internal. I had hoped, and maybe someday with more support and funding, we can do something more and publish something. I hope to keep working with this program and maybe can be involved in some of that. But we have a lot of internal things and we're still developing them for our young doctors. We have an orientation to our medical safe haven, and then Gigi's group comes down to our program once a year and we do a fabulous workshop on training in trauma-informed care for all of our physicians. That is intense. And we realize a 3-4 hour workshop is a lot of time. It's a lot of energy. It's worth it to us. We view that as worth it. And we realize other physicians can't spend that amount of time and we'll be working hopefully on things that can be applied to more globally. But for younger physicians in training, I think it's crucial to have that kind of an intense experience where they feel free also to discuss some of their own concerns and some of their own fears, and are they good enough, or will this be frightening to them, or what will people say, and will they know the right thing to say? And we deal with all their questions in a trauma-informed environment. There's no judgment. It's okay to have questions. It's okay to be a little bit nervous about this. It's okay to say didn't know you had ever talked to someone who'd been through these experiences. Maybe you had, but you didn't even know it. And then when they get to do this, they get more comfort and know that they can be there for these patients. That's what's magical to watch for me, to see these young doctors get those skills, get that confidence that actually they can help people. It's really, that has been career changing for me.
Thank you for sharing that. I think about throughout our conversation, you all have spoken to both the person who's offering the care and to the survivor who is seeking care. And that's that meta conversation, right? Is so important. And I think about survivors that I know who may not go to the doctor for years. And then when they finally are able to build up the courage to do so, because it does take so much courage to do so, that they might have a diagnosis, or there might be something that has been undetected for years because they have not attended to this part of them for many different reasons. And so that always sticks with me. You know, the thing that's brewing underneath, that if what you all offer was kind of more present, folks might have more, there might be less of a gap in them seeking care. So I'm wondering if there's something that might be on your hearts to share with survivors who might be listening to this, something that you think is important for them to know.
Well, I know for a fact we treat a lot of PTSD. We treat a lot, and that is a big issue for survivors. And I would really say that I think physicians in general, I can't say everyone, but need to hear about that and hear about the nightmares, hear about the experiences that people are experiencing. And there is treatment and there is help. Um, and we try to open that door. And what I teach physicians is our job is to open the door. And when patients are ready to come through the door and talk to us and share with us, they will. But know that those doors are open and that there is help for some of these conditions. PTSD is so much more common in this patient population, but it's out there for other patients as well, the people we don't know their past experiences. We always say there's a lot of trauma out there that we don't know about, that people have not disclosed to us, but we want to open that door, and we're ready. Most physicians go into medicine, they want to help people. We all understand that people get busy and there's a lot of demands on everybody's care, but I think when people hear that there's something that people really want to share with us, I think most physicians are going to stop and say, tell me more.
Mm, thank you. Gigi, what are your thoughts?
A couple of thoughts. One, when it comes to that medical space, I know it's different because I can speak for the medical safety treatment program and I know what we do and how we do it. But it's harder when you don't have access to a safe haven and you're a survivor and you feel the shame of your story, or you feel like, well, I can't really share this and I can't really tell them why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling in regards to my health, because I don't want to be judged. I don't want them to know that part of my life. But one, I think speaking up for yourself is so important. And I know that just in the world we live in today, it's not that easy. I know it comes with many challenges and difficulties, but speaking up for yourself and finding those people, right? If it means connecting the resources, connecting to an agency that's going to provide that support for you and with you, by all means, I would highly encourage that. And ultimately, I don't believe a story or an experience defines someone. I think it's a part of your story and something that you get to carry with you. However, it does not define who you are, who you will become. And I've seen this throughout my 10 plus years of experience working in this field. And it's just been so encouraging to be able to walk alongside people that, and even friends that I call friends, that are now executive directors, that are now public speakers across the country, running their own organizations. It's possible. And even if you have that difficult client, that difficult individual who's just been through so much life and trauma, it's still possible for them too. And so even encouraging to those providers that are providing that support, that sometimes, it's hard work, but at the end of the day, you have to choose to believe that no matter how difficult the situation looks or is, there is still hope for that individual. And that's really how we treat our patients as well. It doesn't matter how difficult the story is, how much it seems like, okay, well, we're going to have to bring this person every week for the next 6 months. There is still hope for them, and we want to just provide that space and opportunity.
Mm, mm. Thank you. And Gigi, I'm wanting to really kind of contextualize some of this in the moment that we're in, right? And recognizing that we're in the midst of some challenging times. when it comes to advocacy and when it comes to being able to push, right? And to make something like medical safe haven happen. So I'm amazed at how you all have grown, especially during COVID, right? But when you think about the time that we're in, the piece around equity of care, especially for marginalized communities, um, I'm wondering if you can share with us a little bit about where you find hope.
Um, yeah, that's a great question. I feel like I'm constantly having to ground myself every day, right? Just
Mm,
every day is a new thing, and constantly having to ground myself and remind myself, like, okay, we're gonna worry about today, and then
mm,
tomorrow we'll worry about itself, but today we're gonna focus on today. And um, one I first and foremost, I think my faith is very important to me, and that's ultimately where I find my source of hope. But be surrounded by incredible human beings every single day. I get to show up to work and be happy that I get to work with
mm,
all the people who truly care. Again, there is no strings attached here. All of the doctors that work under our program, like Dr. Davis, like Dr. Chambers, like Dr. Summers in Santa Maria, and Dr. Ingrid Block in San Francisco, they all have a heart. They all are passionate about this work, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get these patients taken care of. And so just to be able to be a part of that and see that every single day, I feel like that for me is okay. There is hope in the world because I'm surrounded by incredible human beings. And also just seeing those little glimmers of hope within our patient stories of they show up and they say, I have never received this love of care. I have never walked into spaces where I feel seen and heard. And
mm,
those little moments that are life changing for me, that keep me going, that keep me wanting to show up and do this work. I mean, I have, I feel like I have a purpose. I have my lane that I have to stay in, but in that space, I get to create that change and be able to support Dr. Davis, be able to support our other locations, and slowly but surely, I, I truly believe that our program will continue to replicate and um, our doctors that get to graduate after their 3 years of residency, they get to take the skills that they learn
mm,
wherever else they go. And again, they may not have a medical safe haven program there wherever they end up practicing medicine, but they get to take those skills. So those patients that step into their room, they will get that treatment. They will get that trauma informed care regardless of their experience, regardless of their background. And I think that's beautiful.
mhm. Same question, Dr. Davis, but with a little spin, because I know you are retiring this summer and you've been in the field and been doing this work. And I'll go back to being a physician champion in so many ways. But I wonder what gives you hope for the field?
Good questions. I am retiring, but I have to say this program is allowing me to stay on as emeritus. So I'm excited to keep working with this program because I have a lot of things on my plate, but this is one of them.
Mm,
But really, I have to say that I have worked with this organization that has grown into what we now call Common Spirit. And it's not a perfect organization. And there's a lot of things in healthcare that is tough these days. I'm a medical director of our group as well, and funding and everything's threatened. But Common Spirit does have mission, and this program grows out of that mission, and that gives me hope that they are supporting this program. And all that we do is just amazing. We have private donations as well through foundations, things like that. But Common Spirit has allowed us to grow in all these sites, and that gives me hope. The other thing that gives me hope always is our young physicians as they open their eyes to learning about trauma-informed care. They see this is not something they get in medical school these days much. It's coming, it's getting more and more
mm,
taught, but it wasn't when we started this program for sure. And so seeing them and this program gives me hope. I come home always after a day with our medical safe haven, and my husband always says, "Tell me what happened. Tell me more." And because I have hope, I see our patients coming in, getting care, growing. And it's just this program gives me hope for the future. I mean, there's a lot of challenges right now, but being in this program has allowed me to have hope.
mm, mm. I have no doubt that both of you have shared some of your hope today and given hope to folks who are listening and who may be seeking that hope somewhere. Um, and so as we're closing out, I always like to ask, is there something that you'd both like to share that maybe I haven't asked yet? And so maybe we'll start with Dr. Dave. And if not, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think we've hit on a lot of the important things in the medical safe haven, and um, I think, it's just that it's a safe place for us to learn and grow, and for our patients to learn and grow. And that's just the most important thing. And I think it reflects with your podcast and what you're doing, which is very analogous to what we're doing. It's a little bit different, but they're all on the same path, and we're all there for all of these things. And this program allows people to look for and help people who've had domestic violence, sexual trauma. I mean, all of these things come up every day with our patients. And so this program gives people tools to allow them to feel confident that they can help people, just to open the doors. So yeah, no, I think that's what's important to me.
Yeah, thank you. Gigi, did I leave anything out? Is there anything that you'd like to share as we close?
I feel like we've covered a lot, and it's so evident and easy to see just our passion as Dr. Davis and I speak. Um, but one, I think just raising awareness of resources that are also out there. So thank you so much for having us on this podcast. Because a lot of people don't know that healthcare like this is available to them. And so our program is very specific in the population that we do serve. We wish we could expand it to all because it's so important and necessary. But again, just for any survivor that may be listening in, if they're located near any of our locations, they have access to us. And so regardless of whether the trafficking happened 20 years ago or it's recent or it's current, they still have access to us. And the neat thing about our program is that we also provide care to those secondary victims, so the children that fall under them. And so we do open up our doors as well. And if they are not connected to community partners, we do have access to be able to create that bridge for them to get that support, to get access to that, and not feel like they're alone in the world. And so we are here, we're ready, and our doors are open. And so if anyone is listening on this podcast, just look us up, Medical Safe Haven at Dignity Health. And so we're here, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Davis, and thank you, Gigi Barrios, for being here, for sharing your heart work, and for really encouraging, because I feel encouraged, but really encouraging folks who are survivors, that there are people out there who are really thinking about all of this and really shaping care that is customized for the experience that they have had, for the harm that um, they're trying to heal from, navigate all of these different pieces, and that you all are there. And thank you for spending your time chatting with me about just medical safe haven and all the things that we got to touch on. There was a lot shared today, and I want to encourage folks listening to connect with what resonated with you most. Consider one practice you can take from here and move into learning more about, or even practicing if it feels appropriate to do so. If you would like to support the work of Cactus and Bloom to bring you these type of conversations and to do culture change work that builds skills, creates awareness, and improves equitable care for survivors of childhood sexual abuse and sexual violence in adulthood, consider a donation. Your contribution can make a world of difference. And together, let's see what blooms.